We're back with Steve Moskowitz, our designated barrister, who's going to straighten us out about one of the weirdest stories of the week.
Yes.
Rafa Marquez, who's one of the best players in Mexico, and soccer players in Mexico, and has been for years, has been sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury as part of a drug trafficking ring, allegedly because he's sort of a front man for a drug kingpin, and I don't know how he is, because they didn't say. But walk us through this and explain, A, how the government makes this determination and why Marquez would fit that description.
The allegations that he's not a drug mule, he's a cash mule. He's helping launder it, and they're looking for things for funds. He travels a lot, and that would be a good reason to spread things around. Now, what happens is the government does all kinds of investigations, and here's where things become problematic. A lot of times the government will do things on suspicion, like the forfeiture cases. You're driving along, a cop stops you, and he sees you have some cash with you. He seizes it as evidence, and what you have to do, you have to file within 30 days, or that's it. There's nothing you can do. You've lost it forever. And what happens with a lot of people, they have cash for legitimate reasons, and if it's not enough, they can't afford to hire a lawyer, and they just lose it. And additional problems is that some of the local police actually count that into their budget. So you think about it, you're driving along and some guy with a gun pulls you over and says, hey, you got cash? You must have done something wrong, give it to me. And that's part of the problems. And here they accuse him of moving the money for him.
Is there a threshold number where you say if you have X amount of money, we can consider that worth forfeiting? Or is it just whim of the guy with the gun?
Whim of the guy with the gun. There are people who've had a few $1,000s in the car, and the cop says, I find it suspicious that you would have this, so I'm seizing it as evidence. And here's the problem. If you have $3,000, $8,000 seized, can you really hire a lawyer and go to court and do a forfeiture case? And remember, the cop doesn't tell you. You only have 30 days to file. So if you shop around for a lawyer a couple months, 2 months later you go in and you find the lawyer and he says, well, too late. It's lost forever. Those are very serious cases. And again, you know, you talk about American justice. Part of the things that bothers me as a citizen and as an attorney, where they just do these things, there's no judge, there's no jury, there's no evidence. Somebody with a gun just takes it away from you.
When I read this story, the thing that stuck out to me was that you said sanctioned. You know, they've been sanctioned. 22 people have been sanctioned, and Marquez is one of those 22 people. But does that mean if there's been some sort of extended investigation? I mean, how do you get to the point where you decide that he is someone who was involved in this? I mean, is this a government investigation?
In this case, I believe it was. But in the cops, with the street cops, there's no investigation. A cop just pulls over and says, hey,
right.
Why do you have this $8,000? I don't believe you.
No. Okay,
Merchants have gotten in trouble a lot of that when they were driving to the bank and cops grabbed their money.
Yeah, but I mean, this is 22 people. I mean, this is like a large-scale thing.
Yeah, that's why I'd say it was an investigation.
Now, okay, he plays for the Mexican national team. He no longer plays in America. He used to play for the New York Red Bulls, but he doesn't play there now. If the U.S. is sanctioning somebody who basically has no business anymore in the United States, how do they get away? Well, it's a rhetorical question as it comes out of my face, but how do they get away with that if he's never in the country or rarely in the country to provide this alleged service for the drug pen?
Oh, again, these are allegations, and all the time you'll see people that are arrested in foreign countries and they're shipped back to the United States, and the United States says, well, you did something that broke American law. Look at the guys over in Europe with the bribes. Look at, you know, all different people. They do that. There was just a guy in the Maldives that was seized because the government said, oh, you've done something. And he was the son of, before President Trump came in, he was the son of a Russian diplomat. The government's very aggressive. They just do things.
So where does this go from here? You're sanctioned. What happens from here? Other than him going to court within the next 30 days and saying, I want my money back, does he have to prove where he got the money?
You have to prove it's clean money or you lose it. That's true in any type of criminal case.
So the burden of proof is on the defendant then?
Sadly, in real life, yes. And we do that. Yeah, well, that's one of the big things. For example, if somebody is accused of a crime and they want to, say, use the equity in their house for bail money, the prosecutor does this motion is you have to prove the money is clean. If you can't prove it's clean, you could have all the money in a bank account, equity in a house, anything else, and you can't use it for bail. So these are serious motions that go through. And also in our case here, now the government's going to decide, do they want to step up the volume, accuse them of something, ask Mexico, hey, give them back, and the governments will have agreements of, giving people back.
So if he has pay stubs for $12 million over the last year, but he has $40 million that he's picked up in that time, that means it's not clean? I mean, how do you prove?
Well, for example, he could have been in the stock market and made profits. He could have had an inheritance. He could have put a loan on his real property. He could have real property that came up in value. I mean, there's ways to prove things, but the problem is it's not like what you think about, you're innocent until proven guilty. In more and more of the things that we're doing, I see the same thing in the office, where the government says, I'm grabbing this from you. And then we have cases like that in the office. And then the client, the person, has to come in and say, no, look, this is clean money, and prove it. And again, with these really short timelines, if you don't go to a lawyer right away, you might lose just because you took too long. A month, 30 days is a very short time.
So, conceivably, if he went to you on day 29 and said, hey, this is happening, he's good. Or is it when you file paperwork? When does the clock stop for the government?
What happens is the 30 days runs from the time of the seizure. So if he came in on the 29th day, we would immediately file. And then what happens? Then we have the nicety of either we do a settlement or go fight it out in court. But
but as soon as you file, that's when the clock stops?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is so big, the government actually has a website devoted to this. We can go check your seizure to see the progress of it. Yeah,
this is anybody.
Guys, this really happens. This isn't one oddball case. The saddest part of this is how common it is.
Wow. And it's become more common?
Yes. And again, the problem is this hits merchants a lot of time. You're a merchant, you have $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 in your store, you're driving to the bank, you go through a red light, cop pulls you over, hey, Monty, what are you doing with that $8 grand? Oh, I think I'm going to seize this as evidence. What are you going to do about it? The guy's got a gun on you. What are you going to do?
So all you have to do basically to find your money is to go to Google theft.
Well, yeah, but there's more you have to do. There's more you have to do.
But you could find it. Yeah,
and that's the frightening part, where we're doing more and more cases where the government does something to you first. It's not like what you see on TV, where you go into court, you have a judge, you have a jury, and then something's decided. It's no, they grab the stuff first, and if they say the money was dirty, you might not be able to defend yourself. Or you have a friend or a relative who has to pay everything for you, like your bail.
This seems somehow way wrong. I mean, way wrong.
Somehow.
Way wrong.
When I first started doing this kind of case, I said, in law school, they taught us first you get the judge and jury.
Yeah.
And, in many cases you still do, but in some cases you don't. And again, a lot of small merchants have been hit with this. They have a relatively small amount of cash. The cop takes it, and they can't afford a lawyer, and they just lose it. And the average amount they seize is $8,000. That's the average.
Welcome to the United States of Argentina. Steve, thanks.
Always a pleasure, guys.
See you next week.
Absolutely.